you.
Praise you.
Satto masakamaya Dhammaso majyotigamaya Dukkam anandamaya Nirutto amaritam gamaya O Lord, may Thou leadest us from the unreal unto the real. May Thou leadest us from the darkness unto the light. May Thou lead us, O Lord, from suffering to bliss. And may Thou lead us, O Lord, from death unto immortality. By Thy grace and Thy sweetness, may we have peace, peace, peace. Bless you.
just like the birds that fly eagerly, just like the waves that dance on the sea, just like the robin you made to sing. Have your way with me. Oh Lord, have recourse in me. Just like the autumn leaves that fall from the trees, just like the sound of the fall winds blowing. Lord, let your rain fall down on me, and have your way with me. Oh Lord, have recourse with me. Take my hand and my feet, have recourse. Oh Lord, use me. Take my heart and all of the soul. Lord, please take full, take
Happy Easter, and as Country G calls it, Happy Resurrection Day. I think there is something still holy about a day like today that gives us all a opportunity to really appreciate the life and the teachings of Jesus Christ, who, whether you are Christian or not, you cannot help but be impressed by the fact that his life did change the world. Sometimes it's hard to appreciate that if we only have a conventional understanding of Christianity. But just as there exists a kind of storefront Christianity, there is a mystical Christianity as well, you see, on the same par with many of the other latter time traditions that we find in the world. You see, something that I call Advaita Christianity, you see. And so perhaps today we may have an opportunity to explore the deeper teachings that is hidden behind the traditional, conventional storefront presentations of the great master's teachings. These traditional story that is being celebrated in churches all over the world today is about the death and resurrection, you see, of Jesus, and the benefit of that death and resurrection for all those who will believe. It's traditional. Whether it is historically true or not, well, we leave that to the scholars and the historians. But it is certainly mystically true. It's like symbolic, if you will, you see, of the death of the ego, the death of our false sense of self, and hence the resurrection in recognition of what we truly are, you see. And that is a message that has been echoed throughout time and across all traditions by those other mystical paths that we find in the world. It gives a deeper meaning to Christ's teaching to Nicodemus about you have to be born again, you see. Traditionally, at the conventional storefront level of Christianity, that saying is not usually preached about, because it goes beyond conventional, literal interpretation of the teachings in the sayings of Jesus the Christ, you see. But nevertheless, it is so. You must be born again. There must be a resurrection in all of our case, you see. And one of the things that the great master did was not just teach it, he showed the way. In fact, as you all probably know, Jesus did not refer to what he was teaching as Christianity, you see. It was a latter date invention of the Apostle Paul, all due respect to the great apostle, because in spite of changing the very name of what Jesus came to teach, his bhakti made up for his error, you see. But what Jesus offered those who were contemporary to him was what he called simply the way. It was not a new term. It was a term that had been used by the African mystics who preceded his incarnation by thousands of years. It is the way. So he showed them the way to die as eagle and be resurrected as one with God. You see, he recovered his identity with the one called God. And that's all of our tests, you see. Hence it has been said in mystical Christianity that if you follow the way of Christ, then you want that supreme bliss that was achieved by the great master. You too have to die as eagle on this cross called the body. The cross is not a tree. It's not two pieces of wood nailed together. This is the cross, this body. And you must hang on it and die to it. Estamos on it. This is the law. So with that said, I'll leave the rest of our conversation up to you rascals. So whatever you would like to explore, you're most welcome. Yes, beloved.
I have a simple question.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'll cut right to the chase. Hello?
Hello. You're fine, beloved.
Okay, I'll cut right to the chase. I won't go into any detail, but my recent brush with serious illness and the visit you made to me at the hospital led to some kind of a breakthrough. I just want to share that, and I'm going to turn that experience into a question. There was a point when you and I were talking at the hospital, and I made a statement about it had to do so much with the desire to end suffering. But the way I stated it to you came from a level deep within me. So much emotional response was attached to that that I don't know if you know this, but my eyes welled, and I was on the verge of, tears. And I was surprised when I saw it myself, and thinking you were going to say, "Oh, Daniel, it'll be okay." You just said, your problem is you're looking in all the wrong places. Right then and there, I heard it. I heard it so clear, this stuff dropped. Now I'm going to fast forward to today. I've been on quite a journey. But, we talked here about, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, the vows of the bodhisattva. But I think the truth is, especially when you perceive yourself as being in the final quarter of life, the goal is no longer to play and explore and psychic shop, but attachments have to be dropped. You know that's the biggest problem. So emptiness seems to answer all those questions for me. I was in my search, I came to that, and I was wondering, there's not very much talk on emptiness, but could you probably frame that approach for one, let's say, who wants to study more to help me organize that process?
Thank you, beloved. Excellent summary of the visit. Although I did not notice your swelling of tears in your eyes, I did notice Imani's though. I give credit for that. I think she was more afraid of your dying than you were. Yes, and when we talk about this emptiness, that particular way of language in it is reminiscent of the approach that the Buddha took. You see, sunya, emptiness. You see, and this choice of language is kind of misleading, because by sunya, the Buddha was not talking about a kind of zeroing out in that sense. You know, emptiness in the sense that there's nothing. You see, his meaning was very similar to what the Sanskrit mystics have referred to as purna, which means fullness, completeness, nothing missing. You see, and in that sense, you see, one is empty of desires. You see, because desires always arise out of a feeling of incompleteness. You see, something missing. And then a desire arises with the effort to experience completeness, you see, sunya, or if you prefer, purna, you see. And that is one of the tasks of life that we are challenged to attain before one dies, you see. This attachment, as you call it, you see. We're so attached to everything, you see, and we cling to that to simulate the experience of fullness, but it is never accomplished, you see. And in the moment of one's dying and death, and the crisis, you see, one begins to understand the failure of one's life, you see, to have achieved that kind of liberation and from psychological and emotional dependency upon this or that for the simulated experience of fullness, you see. And that is what makes death such a terrible ordeal for us, you see. But it makes you serious too. Death is that opportunity, you see, where the whole of your life is summed up. You get a grade, you know. And in that moment, you are able to really experience the failure of an entire lifetime, you see, to have achieved what you search for all of your life, you see. It makes you serious, you see. Again, the Bhagwan Buddha says that therefore you should keep death in your awareness all the time, you see, so that you don't waste your lifetime in living, you see, on that which is of no significance whatsoever in the final scheme of life, you see. So yes, this sunya, this emptiness, you see, is freedom. It's another way of looking at what we mean by emptiness. It means freedom, moksha, you see, liberation from this chronic dependency upon this or that person, situation, etc., for the sake of the temporary simulation of completeness, you see. Yes, it's a lot to it. One last thing, and then I know hopefully you'll have some more to share with us. This emptiness is really a kind of removal of all of these various layers of false senses of self that we operate out of. You become empty of all of this delusion that I am my body, my mind, my breath, the energy in this body, etc., etc. And most importantly, you begin to find out who you are without these roles.
Without being what?
These roles that we have. You see, you play the role of a father. Well, that's over with on your deathbed. You're nobody's father no more, you see. Or you can't be nobody's father no more because the body is on its way out of here. Your role as a wife, your role is this, your role is that. The first layer of misidentification begins with your discovering who you are without these roles that you're playing. Death puts you in contact with that. All your roles are over with. You're nobody's husband, you're not a funeral director, you're not this, you're not that. Netty. You begin to disappear. And because you don't yet know who your true nature, that is the most terrifying experience you can have. You're going into oblivion. So the work begins while living, you see. And you have to begin to strive to recognize who and what you are beyond these roles that you play. The psychosocial level of disidentification has to begin in earnest. So, with that said, beloved, you had a few other things that you wanted to mention?
Well, only that the strategies selected happen at the same level of mental activity as what created the problem. So you can't go by what I guess your mind is telling you, because it's assuming itself that fundamentally doesn't exist. So you just, it's a constant state of delusion.
Yeah, that's the dilemma that the disciple is in when they're trying to do it themselves. The appropriate strategy is you follow the injunctions of the guru.
I agree.
Not your own mind. You see, when you are a disciple of your mind, then that becomes your destiny. Are you with me? Confusion, doubt, distrust, never knowing which way the wind is blowing. You see, the guru is our advantage. You see, and the only way out of your dilemma, beloved, you must take the grace of the guru and follow those instructions. You are a man lost in the forest and you don't know which way to get out of here. So you hold up your finger in the wind, you're looking for the North Star. You see, you're looking for bended branches. Maybe the Indians left a signal as how to get out here all over the place, you know, silly stuff. Are you with me?
Yeah.
You'll never get out. You see. In fact, the more you follow your mind, the more lost you become, you see. So it depends on the individual, you see. When you are lost, know that you are lost. And then if by grace somebody comes, a woodsman come in the forest, then follow the woodsman's advice. Why wouldn't you? If you want to be free. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
You see. part of our trouble, beloved, we're invested in all of this stuff that your mind is preoccupied with. Are you with me? That too is an extension of the me, the false sense of self. And you don't want to let that go, you see. You want to follow your mind. This is the problem. And it becomes more of a problem in these modern times, you know, in this very egalitarian time that we live in, you see, where, you know, we have this hyper-individuality and so forth and so on. But that doesn't change the principle, you see, beloved. Heru had to go to Tehuti and find a way to defeat his own inner demons and obstacles. This is how it is, you see. This is how it is. So, this is the challenge, you see. But that too is like a death, are you with me? You see? And that's why Bhakti is one of the paths for those who can get beyond their egos, you see. Bhakti Marga, the path of love, you can't follow that following your mind. It's not possible, you see, because your mind only is capable of attachment. It's not capable of that, you see, in its present condition, you see. It's wrong to even say my mind because you didn't make it. You see, society made it, television made it, what your teachers taught you, what the bus driver said, what you see on TV. You have a TV-made mind. Why in the world would you want to follow that in the first place? It's not even your mind. It's not your original mind. It is a mind that has been fragmented, contaminated. A mind full of anger, lust, greed, attachment, ill will, doubt, distrust, so forth and so on. You see? A mind that has no ability to be focused, concentrated at all. You see? I mean, just observe the condition of the very mind that you're trying to follow. You see? It's not stable. It's all over the place. Why would you follow that? One of the greatest tragedies in the world, I think, perhaps, is that we, by grace, you see, come in contact with the teacher, you see, and then we don't take the grace. We prefer to follow our mind. But in Sanmat, we call it this, a mamuka, a follower of the mind, not a follower of the guru. The follower of the gurus are called gurumuks. Just the opposite of us. We're following the hearsay information we gather by earning some PhDs or master degrees somewhere, book knowledge, hearsay stuff. Is it any wonder? You see? And then look at the consequence of following your mind. Set your life in the palm of your hand and look and see. What have you gotten out of this? You don't have happiness. You don't have emptiness. You don't have no sunya. You have no burden. You see? You are still psychologically and emotionally dependent upon this or that person or situation or circumstance or thing for the sake of not blowing your brains out. Do the math. You see. But that's all right too, because sooner or later, if not in this lifetime, you'll get the same mind again. Maybe in that lifetime, you'll be a little bit more receptive. You see, so it goes. But this is the essential part. You see. It only works if we can be gurued. And some of us just can't be gurued. But if you can have that recognition, if you can have the tacit and intuitive recognition of these situations that we're in, you can feel it a little bit, you see. And then to follow the instructions and see what happens. When you do that, when you can break free of the gravity of your own mind, and you are actually able to follow those injunctions, which is usually counter to what you want to do, because it's usually not something you like doing, and so forth and so on. But then you see the results of that, you see. And in that moment, we call it a taste. You get a taste of the outcome. Things change now, you see. You see the difference that the Dharma and following the Dharma makes in your life, you see. And then your disposition in that relationship with God and Guru, you see, is radically transformed. And now your practice is based on gratitude, appreciation for the grace, you see. It changes. So your meditation is no longer a routine, mechanical, disciplined struggle. It is a practice that it comes out of sheer gratitude. You see, it begins to approximate what they call bhakti yoga. You see, bhakti yoga. And you begin to develop some bhavas, so forth and so on. All of these things we talk about, so I won't necessarily burden you with that again, but a certain kind of bhava, a feeling begin to emerge. You see. And like you trust your father, you see, you look just like your father. If you all have ever looked at Dayas's Facebook, seeing his father, seeing him, you say, oh my God, this genetic theory, that shit is true, right? I mean, but at some point you see you had some respect for your father, you had some trust in your father, your mother, and so forth and so on, you see. So we're capable of it. It just, one has to have that to make any kind of spiritual practice. Spiritual practice, sadhana, does not work without bhava. It doesn't work without love. Love is what makes all of this kinetic. You see, not logic, not reasoning, because every day your logic and your reasoning shifts. You can't count on that. You see, and again, this is logic and reason coming from a mind that is completely messed up. Right. Right. So. A mind that is all messed up, by definition, can't think logically at all, you see. So there must be love. Love is the only thing that liberates you from living your life on the basis of what you like and what you dislike, and spending all of your lifetime and energy and attention trying to avoid what you dislike and trying to achieve what you do like, based on a crazy mind that is serving as the arbiter of what is what. An untrained mind is a terrible thing to follow. Don't take my word for it. Look at your life. That's my case. Something else anyone has to say about all of you? Yes, man from the East. Welcome home. So good to see you, beloved.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be home.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, back to the idea of today being a holy day for the Christians. You know, it's one thing that has been said over the years that never, you know, kind of made sense to me. So I was wondering maybe you could shed some light. on the idea of, in Christianity, they say that Jesus died to save us of our sins. And for me, you know, like I say, being a warped mind, it never had no logic to me. So I would appreciate it if you could shed some light on that.
I can try. And I don't know, I don't offer my points of view as being anything final, you see. So I want to put that disclaimer out, you see. There are other people who are held as being experts on Christianity, all of those kind of things. I can only give you my humble, intuitive takeaway from that. And Navaji is based on the fact that Jesus came to show the way. So from the mystical point of view of that episode of dying on this cross, it's like he's showing, this is how you do this. Are you with me? It's like you go on a job, perhaps, and you get hired to run a lathe or some kind of machinery, right? And usually it's a guy that's going to show you, this is how you do this is the power button, this is the buttons you use to guide this, etc., etc. You see, they show you by living example, this is how you do it. And one of the reasons for that, beloved, is based on the mechanics and the psychology of pedagogy, how we learn, what we call epistemology, the means by which we learn anything, you see. And the fundamental mode and principle by which we learn is through imitation. Make a note. Most of what we learn is through imitation. And so this is the thing that Jesus and those who teach the way, that's their advantage. They show us how to do this thing, and then we can imitate it. So in that sense, when they said that Jesus died on the cross for your sin, he showed you the way to get out of the consequences of your sin. This is the way out. Are you with me? You see? Now, I don't know if that will play well at the Vatican, but it is my humble speech, you know. This is the way. You see? Many things will show this is the way to die. This is the way, you see. All of these things was demonstrated in that mythology or in that story of Christ dying on the cross for your sins, you see. Another way of looking at it is that he stayed in this body to teach you how to overcome the ignorance that is the basis of all your suffering. Are you with me? So, and he died in this body, you know, living in this body, going through all of this here, all of the trials and tribulation of having a gross physical body, all of the things that the great master went through. He suffered because he stayed in this body, hung on this cross, to show you the way, to bring your ignorance to an end. Because sin, again, beloved, right, the translation from the Aramaic is a little different from what in the West is called sin. You know, sin simply means inaccuracy. You see, missing the mark. You see, the absence of precision. You see, so your sins then are your errors and how you are living, because we're living on the basis of ignorance. You see, and in some sense, Jesus died to actually in an effort to bring your sin to an end, if you're paying attention and with me. You follow my argument, beloved Elohim? Yes, sir. He showed you the way. But now, if we looked at the way, we didn't go that way, then Jesus has not died for your sin. Are you with me? Because you didn't get it. You didn't accept it. It's very interesting. So it's a paradox. On the one hand, it's true, on the other hand, it's not true. Are you with me? That's what makes it a paradox. And so you can choose which direction to interpret it from. I've chosen the latter. You see, it makes more sense to me. It's more in alignment with reality. Hmm? Something else to say about it? Now, the conventional interpretation is that Jesus died for my sins, so I have to do no silence. I'm off the hook. I don't have to do anything. Right? He did it all. And I'm just free now to do whatever, you see. But if Jesus died for your sin, then why are you still suffering? Because your suffering is the result of sin. True. Why are you still emotionally and psychologically trapped? Why are you still heavily invested in this world of attachment and so forth? If you died for your sin, why aren't you happy? Why aren't you full? Why aren't you completely fulfilled? Good man. And those of us who are born in the West can't help but to be shaped by that whole point of view because of the Christian and Jewish nature of our culture. We get permeated by that, and you bring that same disposition to the encounter with a realizer. And now you're in trouble because the realizers, they don't say that. They say, I'll show you the way, and you got to go through the work. Right? They never give you the illusion, right? That you don't have to do anything, right? But believe and thou shalt be saved. Buddha did not teach that. Mahavira did not teach that. You see, Osiris did not teach that. Nowhere. You see. So Western misunderstanding. Got to do the work. And Zen, the Zen master points to something for you to see. You see. But if you keep fixated on the finger, you never see what the finger is pointed to. You see? Doesn't work like that. You see? The gurus, they come and show us the way. That's what the word means, guru, from the Sanskrit, light shining into darkness. You see, knowledge coming in to remove your ignorance, and then you got to go do the work. You see, but that whole pseudo-Christian mentality, you see, never get it. You see, that's what we try to turn the guru into Jesus. You see my point? Doesn't work. You see, doesn't work. You got to do the silent way. When I'm doing part of this job, I killed your spirit today. Now let's see what let's get some resurrection going on. Something else about it, beloved? Yes, brother.
Appreciate the master.
I check them out.
How to stop the reincarnation process after death?
Well, you have to do that while living. You can't, because you see, beloved, it all has to do with what you mean when you say, I. You see? If by I you mean this body, this mind, and all of that, you see, this ego-based sense of self, that is what causes the reincarnation in the first place, you see. But if you mean by I, that which is aware of this body mind, that doesn't reincarnate because it was never born. You see, you are that pure consciousness itself that was never born. It don't even exist in time and space. Time and space exist in it. Are you with me? It is the context, you see. In African tradition, they call it Zedebe. That which was before time, space, and causality, which was never born. That's what I see. You are that. But as long as you don't have that sense of identity, then this, again, it gets recycled. And this is not the first body that you call me. You've had many of them. And every one that you've had, you have called me, right? The body I, the body me, the body self, you will be misidentified with it again, are you with me? Over and over and over and over. So this consciousness, you see, pure consciousness, even now, those realizers who have this a body just like yours, right? They're not identified with it. These are the Jiramuktis, are you with me? They're not identified with their body mind. You see, they don't die. Body dies. You see. They don't reincarnate because they were never this body in the first place. Reincarnation is all in the mind. It's a mind thing. Are you with me? I don't know if that helped, but hopefully a little bit. You know, it's a very complex thing, you see. But ultimately, all of that is an illusion. And Advaita Vedanta, there's a level insight where you realize nobody's in bondage. Nobody's ever been in bondage. But that self that's never been in bondage is the supreme self. It's never been anything other than the same, you see. It gets very profound, very profound. But in its absence, you see, okay, then if you can't have that, then okay, presume you're going to get reincarnated. That can be useful too. Right? It can serve as a motivation in this lifetime, you see, to do that work. It's a very complex thing. I don't want to gloss it. Some of these cooler groups have been exploring all of these things. My best suggestion is that maybe you might want to find such a cooler that works for you. I know your schedule is such, but if you can find a cooler that is convenient for you, that you can get involved in and go through that process. You see, that whole process. Because this ending of reincarnation comes at the end of a long course of cycle. Are you with me? You can't leapfrog there. You can't get there from where you're at. Are you with me? You got to put in the necessary work to make that possible. It's a lot of profound understanding, a lot of practice that must proceed that. Are you with me? The stairways, I love that song, the stairways to heaven. You see, you can't put your foot on the first stair and expect to, you know, leap into heaven. It doesn't work like that. Step by step by step by step. It's a long process, you see. But nevertheless, it's what must be achieved. You see, if there's the desire to get free of reincarnation, I presume that was the You want to be free from that, right? Free from charasi, free from just going through all of this, and then you're going to come back just to die again. Then you come back just to die again. Then you come back just to die again. You're coming back over and over just to be miserable and then die. Then you do that again, be miserable and then die. Then you be miserable and then die. Miserable and still die. Y'all want to sing along? And then die. But that's what reincarnation is, right? And if you don't want that to be your eternal destiny of just living a pointless, fruitless, meaningless, unfulfilled life, and then you die. You see? There's a process you have to submit to. Can't get it through wishful thinking. It's work. It's work. And so the beginning of that work is to understand. The process requires love and understanding. Those are the two forces that give you movement. Love and understanding. Love and understanding. The understanding comes from study, participation in these Kula groups. Sangha. Nobody makes it without that. At all. So you have to engage in that. You see, study, reflections. You see, we're here to teach, and so I was known, right? We're here teaching, then you got to set some time to program. You got to get it. You got to understand it. You see, all of that is a part of the process. You see, you got to know from that process what it is there is to do. Are you with me? Whether it's the path of yoga, which is epitomized by Patanjali Maharaj yoga system, right? Yamas, niyamas, and all of that, you see? Those 8 angas, those 8 limbs, those 8 steps that leads to samadhi, right? Gotta be followed. You don't lead to samadhi. And we'll define, for the sake of our conversation, samadhi as being that point in your growth and evolution where you transcend the will of a Bhagwan, charasi, no more coming and going, right? Let's call that samadhi. That's the 8th anga. You got to go through all of that process. You see, if you go the way of Vedanta, same thing. You see, you got to have viveka. Can't go nowhere if you have no viveka. If you have no capacity for clear understanding, you go nowhere in Advaita sadhana, right? Then you got to have, right? You all know it, right? Some people know it like their ABC. Then you got to have viraja. You got to get detached. You see, from all of those things. Then you got to have some, the katsambati. These are the moral virtues, you see. No more useless activities. You got to have some sama, some dhamma, some tatiksha, so forth and so on, right? Then you got to have some mukshava. The desire has to be there. You see? There must be bara. There must be an intense desire to be free from this arasi. Are you with me? Then you got to learn something. So you got to study, you got to listen to the teachings, right? And you got to reflect. Then you got to go into what they call nididhyasana, right? Now you got to become the incarnation of what you've understood, and that's a whole different process, right? Then you get that freedom. So any way you cut it, beloved, can't get around it. You got to do the work, but you can't do the work if you don't even know what the work is. True? True. No way around it. Yes, beloved.
And the point at which you become, the watcher of all of what's taking place. Can you explain that?
Well, it really is very difficult. We can give a kind of intellectual answer to that. But an intellectual answer is not realization. See, you learn that too as you go through this process of study and reflection. You get a great deal of intellectual answers. The danger is that then you presume that your intellectual understanding is equal to the realization, and it is not. You can understand logically and philosophically, about the Shakti, the witness in consciousness, and etc. But that ain't the witness in consciousness. That's just an intellectual understanding of it. We want more than just that intellectual understanding, but you have to have that. But you don't want to confuse that with the realization. You see, that I am just this witness in consciousness. You don't want it to be something that is pseudo and false. It's just like, for instance, you see, beloved, you have, and this is just an example, but you know that you're a woman, right? You don't have to repeat, I am a woman, I am a woman, I am a woman. You don't have to read a book about I am a woman. It says right here on paper. No. It is felt, done. Are you with me? Right. It's like that. See? Whatever you presume that you are requires no practice to know that. That's something you rascals really have to ponder about. Whatever your sense of self is, whatever it is, I'm the body. Okay, there's no practice for that. You're convinced, you are realized that you're the body. That's where your level of realization is at. It's just at the level of the body. Be that as it may. But now that you have the realization or feeling the conviction that I'm the body, you don't have to read no books about that. Do you? You don't have to meditate about that, right? It's lived. It's a realization. Well, the same is the case with the other truer levels of identification. So when you become a realizer that you are only witnessing consciousness itself, you see, that's it. And that's the only way that you would know it. You can't know, what I'm saying, beloved, you can't know this intellectually. There's no conversation we can engage in out of which you will have you would know, truly know, what it feels like to be the witness state of consciousness. It's just no way.
Because you already become.
You are it right now. It's not even a becoming, see? You don't become something that you already are.
Yes.
You see, you are already that. You just don't realize it. And not realizing it is the source of your suffering, your seeking, you see. But you're already there. You see, thou art that. I see, thou art that. That's the teaching. That every great realizer come and give me. Hazumara, Jesus the Christ, same thing. You're a spirit. You're a soul. You're not the body. Same teaching. You see? And it's not that you will become this. After you do all this sadhana and all of this, I'll become, no. Wrong understanding. You're already that. The purpose of the sadhana is to remove your ignorance that is obscuring the experience of what you already are. You see? Maharaji used to say that the path is more about subtraction than addition. It's about eliminating what we call viyoga. You know, yoga is union, viyoga is to remove. You remove stuff, you remove stuff, you remove stuff, and you keep removing stuff. But that which you already are is always already the case, you see. Maharaji says like a light covered with layers of cloth and so forth. So you got this big quilt, there's no light escaping, so the presumption is that you can't even see the light. Light don't exist. You had to start removing some of the stuff that is obscuring, you see. Layers of ignorance. We have layers and layers of ignorance covering this light. Jesus said, let thy light shine, right? This little light, meaning your light is dim, this little light, let it shine, meaning move some of this stuff. Remove it, get it out of the way, let the light shine. Remove this ignorance. Start removing this ignorance, right? That's what that's about. So it's about subtraction, 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 subtraction. Removing, you see. You're familiar with the bunch of cultures and so forth, you see. That kind of a thing, removing 5 layers of ignorance and misidentification has to be removed, has to be removed. It's like that. And that's what the process is about, you see. We can say a little bit about it under these kind of situations and circumstances, but what it requires, really, truly speaking, beloved, is that one has to engage in the process that is designed to remove it. You can't do it on your own, and you can't do it from your armchair. You see, that's what we was emphasizing with Dinosaur. You see, we want to come up with our own system. You see, we want to use our little mind to think this through. Problem is that we don't know how to think of it. You see, the way we think, that's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. So we're guided. You see, the literature is like a guide in some sense. But then the literature is there, but you still need a human guide to guide you through the literature. Right? I give you a book on quantum mechanics, okay? You read the book, you can pronounce the word, you won't understand nothing about quantum mechanics. You see? At best, you'll come away with a wrong understanding. So we'll read the Bhagavad Gita, we'll read the Dhammapada, we'll read this sutra, that sutra, that sutra, that sutra, that sutra. And the more we read, the more confused we become. You see? Because you're using your mind to try to interpret something that is way beyond your capacity to understand. Hence the need for a song. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
It's like that. It's like that. It's that it is. So that's the world. You see. Now, what we all have in common is that all of us have been beneficiaries of this grace of God. You know what I mean? That somehow or another, without any merit on our part, you see, some Dharma has come into our life, you see. Now, we can make right use of that or not. It's your call. You see. It's like that. You see. Many are called, few actually choose to follow the path, to follow the way. It's a choice. You choose. One of the mystics has rightly said that, but nobody gets serious until you suffer them. Suffering has its utility, it's necessary. Right? If you are not capable of better, you're not capable of gratitude and all, you have no moksha, so forth and so on, if you're non-serious, right? But interested. So you could be interested, but not serious, just interested, you know? Sort of like a nosy, you know, what what Jesus up on that hill, why all the people over there by his house? You're just nosy. It's all right. Don't misunderstand. It has its place. You know, that's where you're at. You know, you have the level of curiosity. Okay, it's fine. That's a beginning, you see. And the grace that is God, you see. Notice that. Oh, that's a little interesting. Then he started working on it. Start sending you some stuff to evolve that curiosity now. You know what I mean? You see? It's sending you some suffering. True. That's what Lord Krishna says, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, right? Those whom I love, I send them ill repute. I send them illness. I send them suffering. Give you suffering. Purifies you, get you straight. Right? Dissolve your fantasy. Overcome your presumption that this is utopia. Overcome your ego, arrogance, and presuming that nothing bad is going to happen, it can't happen to me, blah, all that is dealt with. Suffering. You see? Crisis. Beautiful. Makes you serious. Because we hear, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And then you get your bad news. Right? Then you got the tubes up your nose, right? Then you ain't feeling so good. You see, nobody wants to be the body when it's sick. When it's hurting and sick, right? I want to be the, I mean, in all moment, you're serious. You don't want to be this body. You know what I mean? You give me something, put me to sleep. Dr. G has a story. He got violent in the hospital. They were giving him that morphine frequently enough, you know. He really, you know, wish he had his gun up there. It's like that. That's right. Women, when you all having this babies, before there was the age of the shots that you were getting, when that pain was just there, at that moment, you don't want no kids. Right? All that is over with. Yeah. That's why Maharaji and all saints say there can be no gain without pain. Yes, sir. Pain. Suffering. Suffering. Until you get tired of suffering. Now, you're serious. Then you get serious about being happy. Right now, you're content with being unhappy because you can get you some pleasures. You can eat something, see something, smell something, taste something, touch something, and get what in something we call hit. You get a little hit, and you get a little temporary pleasure, and that carries you over. Soon it disappears, but you know the world is big. You can find you some more pleasure. Pleasure is everywhere. You see, that's not happiness. So you're all right with being unhappy. You see. Point comes though, right? Because when this body gets broken down, right? Now you can't eat no pizza. Now you can't go dancing. Now you can't go jogging. You see, the body doesn't work anymore. You see. The senses are still alive and well. You want stuff, I desire. But the body's tore up. It cannot act as an agency by which you fulfill your desire. Now that's a double hell, right? But you sure want to some pizza. Right? And it's killing you because the body is such you can't get none. Now this desire. See all your desires? They're going to become your demons. Make them know. All of them desires you got, them going to be your demons. As you get closer and closer to that point where the body is going to run out of the energy and the capacity capacity to act on the desires, right? The desires will increase. The body decreases. The reverse relationship that we say in math, right? All that, you see. You want your cold Pepsi, but your throat. You want to eat something, but your digestive system messed up. Now you throw it right back up. Nothing stays down. See? Hungry go swim. That's what the Buddha called it. You're on your way. Get ready. Yes, beloved.
That reminds me of a story you see repeated in some of the Buddhist literature, and that is as a person comes closer to discovering who he is. The story is that the demon palaces experience earthquakes and things like falling from the ceiling, and they all run around and say, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Who's upsetting my world?" And then they come after you to fuck up your life.
Yes. Oh boy. Yes, yes, yes. It's like that though. You know what I mean? And so as we grow older, you see, then it's like that. But even the young kids suffering because they want a body old enough, big enough to do what they want. They want to drive a car, but your feet can't reach the pedal. Now you suffer. So nobody is spared. That's why the men say everybody is suffering here. The little kids are suffering because they're too little to act on some of their desires that they have right now, right? The older people are suffering because their bodies are too long. This is it. Yes, beloved.
So I need some more. The metaphor or the symbolic life of Jesus tying to the death and resurrection of the ego and being born again. I've kind of pieced some of that together in the past, never verbalized it that way, but that was, and you said some profound stuff in the past, but this was some profound shit. And I just need some more of it.
You want some more? But it's I can only point you in the direction. There's tons of, there are still some practitioners of mystical Christianity on the planet. You see, thank God, you know? And they probably can really blow your mind, you see, with a lot of things that traditional Christians are completely unconscious of, you see my point. But there's a lot more. You see, I don't know, you will almost have to, it's like shopping, right? You come into Walmart, I greet you at the door, I'm a door greeter, hi, how are you? Or look upon me as a salesperson on the floor, how can I help you? What are you looking for today? You see, then I can point you there, you see. What parts of your traditional understanding of Christianity would you like to explore? That, because there's something in you that made you define yourself as a Christian. What was that? What made you a Christian?
You know, as I really look at the root of not only just Christianity, but probably some of the other major religions as well, is the cornerstone of love, the you know, living a life of goodness, right? Of being helpful, and somehow Christianity got hijacked along the way to come to symbolize something else. I mean, every generation has a definition of what Christianity ought to be and how it looks. It's never translated into what I perceive the life of Jesus Christ being. I mean, it's almost like the complete opposite sometimes when I see how the world is right now, especially in the U.S., a Christian country. Okay, as I hear you, since coming here, it's been resonates a lot more with the way of life I want to live as opposed to the way Christian fantasize about how Christianity should be. So, you know.
Well, there's a whole series of old talks on the Jesus Dhamma.
Yeah.
And you probably could check with Bilal. I think we visited that years ago, didn't we? In fact, I tried to start there because most of us come out of the Christian West, and we have Christianity as our birth religion and so forth and so on. So there's at least, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 talks, you see, on the Jesus Dhamma that looks at Christianity from the mystical point of view, you see, the Sermon of the Mount, the Beatitudes and so forth and so on, which are usually not talked about, preached about very often, you see. And then you see, even in the Vatican, you see, you have to understand that the Christianity that is dominant, not only in the West, but for the most part on the planet, that is not the whole thing called Christianity. That was whittled down by, you know, Emperor Constantine, you know, that kind of thing. In the Vatican, they have all kinds of collections of different perspectives, you see, and different concepts of what it means to be Christian. Very different, you see, than what is you see on the television and so forth and so on, you see. So they know, are you with me? But when you look at it very deeply, in fact, in the Catholic version of Christianity, you can see a little bit more of where it all started by looking at their symbolism. So if you ever go to Africa, for instance, and walk into those pyramids, you'll see the origin of the Mitro. That's Osiris. You'll see them sitting in this little chamber. You see it all on the wall. Those of you who went, you saw this, right? The Catholic Church symbols have mimicked the entire teachings of ancient Egypt, fundamentally, right? And I must add, in all respect, diluted it tremendously, you see? But all of this symbolism, the crook, you know, all of that, the staff, all of that, you see, borrowed. And even the, and here's where we get into areas that may shake your Christianity. Are you with me? So I have to tread carefully here, you see. But even this whole concept of a Messiah was borrowed, you see. Soter, right? One of the Ptolemies, right? That whole image of Jesus, you see. I mean, it gets very deep, you see. Josephus writing, there's no mention of a Jesus, period, right? It gets very deep, gets very deep. But at least you can trace the symbolism. Sometimes the symbolism speaks more about the origins and what it's all about in the literature, because that's dogma and doctrine. That's King James can write a Bible, come on, you know what I mean? But trace the symbolism. And you step right back into ancient Egypt. The same is the case with Islam. Trace the symbolism. Egypt. The same is the case with Judaism. Trace the symbolism. Egypt. The same is the case with Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, every one of them. Trace the footsteps of the Buddha, and it goes to Egypt. And what did the Egyptian teach? Anukasa. Your only consciousness is So it's very difficult to talk about that kind of thing without offending to me, because it's not purpose to offend anybody, you know what I mean? But if you're searching for the truth, you see, and being a Christian is not necessarily searching for the truth. Being a Christian is to be saved from your sins, fundamentally. Right? Being a Muslim, it's not necessarily about searching for the truth, it's about following the Sharia, you see, and going to paradise. And have you some young girls. Right? And Judaism is not even about going to heaven. It's about having power right here on earth.
Yes, sir.
You see?
True.
But if it's a path of liberation, in the most radical sense of the word, those footprints go back to Egypt, even pre-Egypt. You know what I mean? Even to say Egypt is incorrect. It's prior to the rise of Egypt. You see? But if you go back down to the Hottentot, see, small people.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think these people went to Egypt in the first place? You see, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he could have fled anywhere. Why didn't he go to Europe? He would have been safe in Europe, right? Jesus. It is said that even the Buddha couldn't get there. That's what they said. And that's one of the inadequacies of the history of these various paths to liberations from the East and so forth. They usually, typically know very little, if anything, about African spirituality.
Sir.
Because of academic racism, put it out in the books, so they never come in contact with it. You see my point? You have a few that, like some miraculous grace make that connection, so you'll have a good chief. You see, a European mystic went straight to Africa to create his whole system. You see, you have a Indian teacher now that is on. They've abandoned the Brahma Vishnu Shiva, right? They're in Africa. You see, Advaita Vedanta is taking this verse in Africa now. You see, all of that. So it's so much to be said. You know? But Ramakrishna Maharaji, a 19th century sage, saying, I think he said it best, any of these ways are fine. It's okay. You want to be a Christian, fine. Be a Muslim, fine. Be a Jew, fine. Nothing wrong with that, you see. All of them, over time, can lead to the same place. Right? But they have to be traveled for real, you see. So it's not about, compare Christianity to Islam and see which one the best. Just follow any one of them, but follow it truly, and you arrive at the same place. All the pathways, you see. And this is true.
I'll meet you there.
I'll meet you there. All of it's true. Y'all want all these things? I'm taking too much time on it, huh? Sister, we gotta get down to business. And then the kids got a little poem to recite. Jesus wept would get you 3 eggs. Everybody said, Jesus wept, give me my stuff. Yes, beloved.
I'd like to ask one more question.
Go ahead, beloved.
That is, when you look at all the traditional maps of consciousness, I go back to the iceberg theory, there's a little 10% that's floating on the surface that we spend all our energy in life trying to address what's going on in the depths of our awareness down deeper. All solutions seem to involve the ability to really access those dark layers that exist in the subconscious and how to bring them up. A lot of times in our day-to-day experience, we do have the opportunity, but we're either in denial or we edit the experience so we continue to suffer. What I can't understand, and this is where the Dharma, this is where meditation, this is where practice all comes in, because it is a way of pulling debris, I guess, from the subconscious into the conscious area where we can hopefully effectively deal with it. But even beneath the layer of the subconscious is what they call the unconscious, which I can only think of as something transcended. But I'm not sure how, when we study here at the house, I don't have access to what's unconscious, but are you saying there's a process by which one can visit the unconscious and be conscious that you're there at the same time? Or is it something that's just it's transcended? It's the subshuti you talk about when we sleep every night? But I don't know if you're following me, but clearly
I'm scared to follow.
Clearly it points to where the work needs to be done is in the subconscious, because that's where the beliefs are, that's where all the, that's what's hurting us so much, and yet it is elusive and outside of our day-to-day grasp unless we engage in a practice, or we do the Dharma as a guide to test all those assertions for their validity.
Okay, well, certainly there's some valid in what you say about all of that, and part of what you say belongs to the culture of psychotherapy, where one is, we call it uncovering you so that you can get to where you hurt. I don't know if you had a chance to watch Buradaji, you here, and maybe you can.
Oh, I saw the film.
Okay, then you know that's where your work is at, right? Where you hurt the most, you see, because that's what you're the most protective of, you see. That's getting into the deepest core of ego. Are you with me?
Which reminds me, that's what Freud said. Go wherever your gripes are, and there you will find who you are.
Well, you will find the ego, which is not who you are, because it's
what
conscious, you know what I mean, right? So ego with that provision in the language, or what Jung called your shadow material. You see, different schools of psychoanalysis have referred to that same area in your psyche, right? Meditation actually requires that you're pretty much sane to begin with. Meditation is not something that cures your insanity as such. You must become sane in order to benefit from it. Very often in traditional cultures, where if a person was not psychologically sane and so forth and so on, then they were not initiated, obviously. One of the things that I witnessed, and Bilal probably remember when we went to India and got a chance to sit in on Maharaji initiations, right, Bilal? Yeah. And you have a room full of people, right, coming asking for initiation, you see. Some would ask, and then Maharaji would look one way, take them, look another way, can't take you. You know what I mean? He would ask a few qualifying questions, you see, to each person that would come. I had never seen this process where there's people actually getting rejected. You know what I mean? But they are getting rejected. rejected. And I don't think that began, obviously, with Maharaji. I think it's a part of the whole history of the Guru disciples process of selection. But I do know that sanity is one of the criteria for initiation, right? Now, sanity was defined differently, right, than in the West. Are you with me? In the West, a maladapted individual is a person that can't love and can't work. Pretty much those are the two factors that determine whether the person is sane or not. He's maladapted, he can't love, he can't work, etc., right? But, and in the East and in those other places where the way where spiritual systems evolve, you see, because there's today no American spiritual system. You know what I mean? It's, right. America is not old enough to have given birth to one yet. It might, we'll have to see. But in the East and other parts of the world, those traditions were born and grew and became viable, you see. And their definition of sanity was a person that has no control over their anger, lust, greed, attachment, and vanity. Fundamentally is insane. And they don't initiate you. You see? So they have to see some evidence, right? They will sometimes check for love, see who you love. That you love your wife, I don't have a wife. You love your husband, I don't have a husband. You love your best friend, I ain't got no best friend. I don't love nobody. Right? Next. Right? Or they ask you something, do you work, are you married? I mean, something. Looking for some evidence that, from a Western point of view, that you're not maladapted. You see, but if you're bipolar, schizophrenia, you understand, having anxiety and panic attacks because you're trying to protect yourself from something that will happen 25 years in the future, you're hallucinating, you're hearing Jesus talk to you. Sanity is required. You see. Now, some out of their mercy, particularly in the monastic tradition, out of their mercy, you come into the ashram, into the monastery, right? And you're there, and out of their compassion, they say, you know, well, this person's already too weak to be rejected, right? They can't handle that, right? They may commit suicide, anything. They've had too many abandonments in their life, etc. They'll let you in, right? But you can't ask no questions for 3 years. So what they're doing in that period of time, they, you know, helping you develop some character, you know, sweep and mop, you know what I mean? So sanity also is reflected in character, right? So a lot of times they will make character a basis for deciding whether I'm going to work with you or not. Character, you got some character. Because to the degree that you overcome your anger, your lust, your greed, your attachment, etc., that will show up in the form of character. Where your character is. It's like that. So, Daya Saab, you speak of the fact that what meditation does do, as you see, it reveals to you the state of your mind, which includes all of that stuff you're talking about. When you sit down, see, when you get still and sit down, and if you pratyahara, if you withdraw your senses, you see, don't be listening to no radio, don't be burning no incense, you know what I mean? Try to remove as many of the objects of each of our 5 senses that you can, so that you minimize distraction, you get quiet, you get still. And the stuff started coming up. Memories, desires, scenarios. You see your lust. You see, you have an erection sitting there repeating your mantra. You begin to see all of this stuff about yourself that you could never see before because you're too distracted. You're on the move. It ain't not like they were not there. They were. You were just distracted, chasing. And you're click-clacking. But when you get still and quiet, it comes up. Right? It comes up. See? You begin to to see you. Right? But you have to be able to not break and run from that. You see? Sitting still and quiet is like sitting your life in the palm of your hand. You see? That's in your life every day. Palm of your hand type of work. You will see your lust, you will see your food, you will have thoughts, memories, have desires, ambitions, all of that. Right? And very often, that's what makes you run away from meditation, because you don't want to see all that stuff about yourself. I ain't gonna do no more of this stuff till next year. You see what I'm saying? Right? You won't like it.
Yes, sir.
You won't like it. Because all this stuff is coming up. You know what I mean? Mind is flooded with all this stuff about yourself. And you're definitely not gonna like budgeting. You see my point? Because then you really see the absence of stamina. Something. But all of these are self-revelations about the state of your ego. This is the key here. All of that stuff. The pure consciousness has no darkness in it. You're saying the state of your mind. This is the state of your mind. This is the condition that your mind is in. You see? And all of that stuff that is below will come to the surface. Eventually. You see, all your samskara, all your tendencies, you see, all the things you want to do, that becomes your sanchit karma. You'll do it next time out. You see my point? But you can get around to all that stuff tomorrow. By the weekend, I mean, you're going to need a lot of lifetimes to fulfill all of that kind of things. So you won't like it. So yes, all of that comes up. You begin to see your mind. Now, that can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. You see, it can produce breakthrough and motivation or discouragement. Most people go to discouragement. I say, you know what I mean? I ain't doing no meditation. I'll come up with something else to myself. I'll change jobs. I'll give me a new mate. I'll move to a different part of the country. Give me a new car. Right? I mean, you come up with something like that. Well, meditation is out. No, I have not been spying. I've been eavesdropping outside the window. Oh, God. But that's how they go. You see, that's how, or I can do the breakthrough. Now you see, oh my God, I'm crazy. My mind is messed up. Now you can spend the rest of the time of your life after that revelation lamenting about it, but if you're fortunate, you do something about it. That do something about it becomes so hard. Because you see clearly, my mind is messed up. I'm crazy. You know what I mean? I'm crazy. You see? And you begin to see all this. At some point, and you will reach where you can't lie to yourself no more. That's where you got to get to. Where you cannot lie to yourself any longer. You're out of lies. Now you can leave the path, and you can stop meditating, or you go to work. You see? And your whole relationship to your mind changed. See? Because you're very much, you're in love with your mind. You see? You really are. Your mind is your single greatest attachment that you have. It's not your stuff, it's your mind, your opinions. You see, you're attached to that. Deep down inside, you don't want to change. You see, why they keep asking me to change? You don't want to change. You're attached to your mind. And that attachment, when you see the mind that you're attached to, that becomes the undoing of that attachment, you see. And that's the beauty of this path. It's like you having a bowl of soup, right? And the waiter's bringing it out and sneezes. And puts it down. You're not going to eat it. It smells good. It is your favorite soup. You ain't eating that soup. Because you know it's contaminated. It's poison. You follow me? Instead of alkaline, calls it poison. And you see that now for the first time. My mind has been poisoned. This thing is poison. Made in America, made by television, made by evening news. You see? It's not, you realize it's not even my mind. There's nothing original in it. Start breaking down the attachment, you see? And then you want to clean it up, you see? I shouldn't even say the mind is a problem per se. I don't want to say that. I'd rather say that it's the condition of your mind that's the problem. You see, it has not been trained, it has not been purified, it has not been restored to its original condition, and therefore it cannot function as it was originally intended to function, right? But now it's very tamasic, rajasic, not sattvic. The mind's original condition is sattvic. Right? That becomes the guru. You see? Because the sattvic mind lines directly up with the outward gurus. Correct. You know what I mean? That mind is what becomes a disciple. The rajasic and the tamasic state of mind that we operate out of, you can never have really any real authentic discipleship. Not possible. Sattvic mind is the disciple. See? And that's work. And then you'll see it in the meditation. You see you just messed up. You see my point? I mean, really seriously, you know? No compassion, no nothing. All of what you do outside of meditation, while you walk around, fake, 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 fake. All fake. When you sit down, this is what you are. This is who you are as an ego. You see? You can't, when you're out here, you ain't seeing your ego. Sit here and you see your ego. And you will be made sick by what you see. True? True. And that can motivate you or scare the hell out of you. Scare you away from the path. It's really like that. You see? It's like that. And some great souls like Amitabha and so forth, they saw the mind and fled to the caves. A lot of the sahus, the alahutus, the sannyasins, because you don't have to be at the end of life, 75 years old, to become a sannyasin, to take sannyas. Some of them take sannyas at 12, 13, 14, 15. Sannyas can happen at any age, at any stage of life. But what they all have in common, they have seen, I'm in trouble. You see? And they flee to the caves. They completely snap all them rolls, I'm out. You know what I mean? And they end up. So everybody will express objectively some mistake, but they out from the inside. Are you with me? The way they get out, they go in. You see? But the point is that it can be a great motivator. You see? You lose all sympathy with it. You see? We have way too much sympathy with our egoic mind. Way too much. You always feeling sorry for your mind. feeling sorry for yourself. It's simply feeling sorry for your mind. You see, you're on your mind's side all the time. Always rule in favor of your mind. You see, your mind and don't do no meditation. But you say, well, you know, my mind is too, you know, tired to be doing all this meditation. Why y'all talking about it? You see, your mind. Your ego, leave my ego alone. You don't like it. Anybody touch that ego, you mad as hell. True, I mean, really, you know. Because, you know, they can see you ain't perfect, but inside your fantasy, you think you're perfect. So they say, oh, you ain't perfect. Shut the fuck up! Leave me alone! You see, you're in that moment, you remind them of their own experience in meditation. But they see the same thing in meditation about themselves. They just think that can't nobody else see this. Well, that may be true of the general population, but not with the ones you live with. In those intimate relationships, now we see this shit. We see you. And we point that out. And that ain't pleasure. You see? But you see it in yourself anyway. But it's easier to avoid meditation than people in our lives, you see, that's the problem. So it's a lot of things that can be said. I think we covered most of it. Who would have the last word?